Okay, so this is a GE radio I'll be restoring. I've already done some work on it some years back. Someone, it was a gift someone gave me, knowing how much I like these old beasts. And when I got it, it did have some issues, which I addressed. A number of paper capacitors inside had to be replaced, of this sort. These wax things. These are two that actually came out of here. I don't know what I did with the others, but just to get get the thing working again, I took these old paper things out and put modern plastic ones in there. They're just tacked in. I'll now get around to making it look a little better. A full restore. I may actually gut these and restuff them, meaning put inside a modern capacitor. They're much smaller. They'll fit inside these cardboard tubes, and repack them with the wax and everything, make it look just like it did from the factory. We'll see. That's a little time consuming, but there aren't that many of them in here, half a dozen maybe, and so I think I am going to do that. The case on this thing, I know it's hard to tell with this camera, but it's blood red plastic. I do not believe this is baked. In fact, I'm almost sure it's not. And unless I'm mistaken, this is not Bakelite. But it is a nifty color, very good condition. The clock face, amazingly clean, no scratches or anything. Same thing with the dial face. It's very clear. It's got the CD Civil Defense marks on it, which is nice. It is an alarm clock radio. It also has a buzzer in the clock, so you don't have to wake up to a radio. You can wake up to a nasty buzzer that's inside the clock. I think this clock is pretty much stock of a lot of clocks that GE made. The movement of this is probably common as dirt. Works very well. It's a little stiff setting the time and other things. Might need to get in there and have a look at that. It has a sleep function where you crank this clockwise and the radio will come on for about an hour, and after an hour it just turns off. So you go to bed at night, click this on, the radio will play for an hour or so to put you to sleep, and then it automatically turns itself off. Of course, it also has where you set the time, and in the morning or whenever you want to wake up, it turns the radio on. Interesting, it also has an outlet in the back into which you could plug an appliance. I think what they really intended for that would be a phonograph, a record player, because it also has a phonograph audio input to it in here. So you could wake up to a phonograph playing your favorite record. It's kind of cool. Or have a lamp or something like that plugged into it. I hear people say you could plug your coffee maker into it. I wouldn't do that. That probably draws a little more power than this was meant to pass. All that switching for the radio, and that outlet on the back goes through this clock, and I don't think a coffee machine's a good idea at all. Over here behind this lamp is, I'll show you why that's here in a minute, but the volume control and the tuning control. Up top here, this is what sets the alarm. You pull this out and dial it, and that moves this black dial around here. interesting, the pointer for the alarm time is opposite. It's actually the same as the hour hand. It's just opposite side of it. And also, oddly, the second hand comes out both sides, equidistant. So it's not like a single sweep second hand. It has it out both sides. Gives it a kind of, I don't know, aviation look to it or something. I like it. It's kind of cool. So the controls on this thing are stiff. They do work just fine, but they're stiff. I think some cleaning and lubrication on some of that is in order for this guy, this gal. I'm a little worried about the clock because it's so stiff to adjust the time back here. I might be able to leave that alone. And judging by what I'm seeing when I power it up, that's probably the case. If I don't have to, I don't want to get into that clock. The radio itself does have issues. It works, but there's some troubles with it. I know what they are. I'll show. But right now I've got it plugged into a Variac here. There's a meter, AC volts, and this light bulb, oldie. We'll switch him on, and I'm going to bring the voltage up to about 75 volts. Now, 75 volts, the clock is running, and near as I can tell, normal rate for a second hand. So, that's not bad. Now these clock motors, they're synchronous. They're not going to change RPM very much at all, if at all. They're locked into the 60 hertz, which is what this thing runs on, 60 hertz AC. The lowering the voltage really only changes the torque of the motor. Now, this thing expects call it 120 volts, and it's getting 70, and the clock is running. So that tells me there's not an excessive load on the motor driving that clock, driving that mechanism. So that's a good sign. Now the radio is not going to work very well on 70 volts, although it probably would work some. I've already basically checked this out electrically. As I said, I've replaced paper caps a long time ago. The electrolytic in this thing, usually those are the first things to go. It appears that what's in here is the original electrolytic cap, made by GE, or labeled by GE. In here it's a two-section electrolytic, typical of these American 5s. The tube lineup in it is typical radios of this era. This is made 1952, 1953. I think 53 for this one. So the electrolytic seems to be working all right. I'll show you what it does when I power it up, which is a separate issue. It's an unfortunate one, but it's not the end of the world. So, to give you an idea, it's running on 78 volts right now. The clock's working just fine. I don't think there's any reason to get into that. Crank it all the way up, 120 volts. Yeah, still not complaining. Of course, it hasn't changed anything about the radio. Just a 100-year-old light bulb got brighter. So we can ease back on this. Probably go all the way down to 60 volts. Yeah, 60 volts. The clock's still turning. That's half the voltage it normally runs on. So that's telling me that clock's in fine shape in spite of the stiffness of the adjustment here. Yeah. So, oh yeah, the alarm. It's a buzz. Let's see. I'm awake, and I'm going to adjust the alarm. Let me give it some voltage here. until that comes on. You might want to adjust your speaker volume. Not the best thing to wake up to, but it would get it done. Of course, you got a radio right there. Why wouldn't you just have the radio come on? Which is what it's meant to do. So, get rid of this light bulb, this meter, and show you what the trouble is with this radio.